Welcome to our latest episode of The Diplomats, where we talk about Carnage 2020. And I'm happy to have with us Ben Kellman, who finished on the top board and fifth in the tournament. Our podcast, videocast, whatever this is sponsored by diplomacybriefing.com, where you can get all the latest diplomacy news. It's an absolutely free newsletter, and I suggest you join. Ben, welcome. Good to see you again.
Ed, thanks for having me.
All of our games and talks have been just, without video. So it's interesting to get to see someone and talk to them face to face.
Yeah, it is. It's a little tricky because you don't know whether to look at the camera or at the screen. But, I definitely like seeing people face to face. That's been a big thing for me this whole pandemic. Feeling like you're getting to interact with people in person a little bit more.
So we're going to go through your tournament a little bit, but I noticed that you and I shared a theme in DBN coverage. And when people talk about us, what they say about me is like, Ed's a Care Bear, and then I wasn't a Care Bear anymore. But with you, it's like, Ben's a new player. We don't know much about Ben. We're trying to learn about Ben. He must be okay because he's on the top board. He's doing well. And I saw your interview on DBN. So, look, you talked a little bit about why you got into diplomacy in that interview, but talk to us about you, Ben, the man, the myth, the legend, the stealth candidate.
It is. I mean, to a certain extent, it's true. I think I've tried to tell myself that I see this as my rookie season of diplomacy, if that makes any sense. So I'm not trying to put too much on myself, and I'm already being new this year and, working my way up. Brian said on the selection show video DBN did this morning that I've improved game to game or tournament to tournament as the year's gone, which I was really happy to hear. I hadn't charted out how I've done that way, but that's exactly my aim for this season. In terms of diplomacy, I said it on the top board interview, but in case people didn't see that, I learned how to play when I was a kid. I was an 8th grade teacher that taught us in school, played a few games back then, a few games over the years, but I never really played more than 2 games in any given year until I came out to a couple tournaments, Liberty Cup and Tempest in 2018, and tried to really dip my feet in the water and get going. But I came out of that really thinking, I need a regular hobby. I need to be able to play regularly and really improve myself, play each country a few times, learn how the game flows. And I think that's just how my brain works. I kind of need some building blocks to put one experience on top of another and see how it all comes together. Some people who have been new to the game this year have really impressed me because they can just pick it up from the articles and everything. But I think I love how with the online format, I've been able to play so much. We all have been able to play so much, been able to learn the game better, learn the players better. Just it's been such a fun year playing diplomacy.
So one of the things, there's 2 things about you that I want to share or draw out of you. The first is it's very interesting when you talk to these other players, how they got into diplomacy, what their interests are, and all the rest of it. But you're one of the few people I've talked to that comes from a sports background, and you've already mentioned rookie. You take that approach. I mean, tell us a little bit about why sports and diplomacy seem to mesh for you.
Yeah, well, sports is something I loved my entire life. Ever since I was a little kid, I played soccer, basketball, baseball. When I was in high school, I started playing football. By the end of high school, I started playing rugby, played football and rugby through college, and then rugby up until, God, I guess it's been almost 4 years ago now. Eventually, my knee just stopped working, and I kind of had to cut that out. But that sort of competitive environment, that idea that you're showing up and you're going to test your skills against someone else, and it is a game. It doesn't ultimately mean anything in life, but it means everything, within the context of the game. It's just something I really enjoyed. So if I can get a little philosophical with it, I mean, so much of life is not black and white. You see here, you've got to work on this, you've got to do this.
We live in the gray.
Right. In a game, you play and you win or you lose. And I just like having that as an outlet. You don't get quite the endorphins playing diplomacy, and it's a little bit different because you have to. The adrenaline rush can really help you in sport, but in diplomacy, you've got to try to stay even keel. And for me, mentally, and I, it's a little bit different, but you get the same sort of enjoyment out of the game, and that's been really fun for me.
Well, you're also, like they say in baseball, a five-tool player because one of the things that intimidates me a bit is, uh, I'm a lawyer, so I always play well with lawyers, either online or face to face, because I know how lawyers think, talk, act. But in diplomacy, there's so many people with uh, different sort of occupations, but there's a lot of software engineers, a lot of mathematicians, a lot of people, engineers, come who have quite a tactical background, whereas I have what I think is a social game. But you have that competitive instinct. But if I'm not mistaken, you also do, and you don't have to reveal your employer, some sort of policy analysis for a living. So you look at hard things and try and simplify them, is my guess.
I do, yeah. I do a lot of reading legislation and regulation and explaining that to subject matter experts in the healthcare field, and then trying to get their opinion so that we can figure out positioning on them. So yeah, it's a lot of analysis. It's a lot of also trying to anticipate why politicians are doing certain things and how we can sort of help to create the desired outcome. The company, I mean, I won't get into the specific company. It's not a known name, but you never know what your HR department's going to get upset about. But they, we do contracting for state governments. So, working with lobbyists in this case, trying to influence policy, we're generally working for what I consider to be the stability and betterment of the Medicaid program in each state. So it's something that I believe in. I think getting everyone health care is really important, and I really like the Medicaid space. So that's in terms of my job. But in terms of, yeah, the tactics that you were just referring to, definitely thinking about people's motivations and thinking about how to make change. It's a little bit different making changes to wording than it is making changes and thinking about how things are going to play out on the board, but it all plays in together to a certain extent.
Well, that's sort of similar to me. I worked, my first job before I went to law school was I worked for the U.S. Congress, and I would uh, find out on a Thursday or Friday when the Speaker of the House would announce what legislation was due to be voted on the next week. And my first job, it's sort of scary that 21, 22-year-olds are doing this, was to actually read the legislation that was being voted on, distill it, and send it to the congressmen and women, so they would know what they were voting on, because I don't think it's a big shock to at least educated people that there are so many bills and they're very long and they're written technically that there's no chance that people can read every single bill that they're voting on. So they leave it to other people to read and explain.
And they're very understaffed. I think that I did an internship in Congress, also in the Senate. I think it's a little bit difficult for legislators to allocate money to themselves because it'll look very self-interested. But I really think, especially at the state house level, but even in Congress, more staff for legislators would be a real positive reform. Because, I mean, you were just talking about it in Congress, but at the state house level, I mean, some of these people are making important policy, and they have one person working for them, and they're making policy on every issue. And there's no way that they can have the expertise to understand these things. It actually gives lobbying more interest because they come to determine who they can trust, and then it kind of, anyway, I'm getting off a little bit.
Well, that's true. I mean,
Diplomacy.
I worked in the state house, and I was one person for one state rep. But I think the point for diplomacy is, I mean, both of us come from a background where we have to distill a large amount of information and simplify it and be able to explain it to others, which I think are skills that may not be skills that other people have, but there are skills. And if you play to your strengths, it's something that I think both of us have been able to use in both of our rookie seasons here and on this circuit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. As far as the skills go, It's been a lot of fun. Oh, and I never said, I'm looking at before you move away from the standings there, just congrats on such a high finish. I mean, you finished second and you really had a shot on that top board. If Bill hadn't made that great play, I think you really would have had a shot to top it.
Well, I appreciate that. I talked about Chris Brand on the top board, and we can talk about it a little bit later. I mean, being second, I mean, I was second in the center count also on the board, but I think it's just a function of where we placed in the tournament,
Mhm.
and I'm really happy with the result. Just being my first virtual top board, and I think you should be as well. So it was a
Yeah,
good tournament for both of us.
it was. Yeah, I was very excited to have some success and get on the top board. The top board didn't go as well as I'd hoped, but you know, you only build from there.
And here on the screen, you weren't just the top board. You had the best Austria, but the highest score of any country in the tournament. Now that's a little bit of no, not taking anything away from you. That's a
Mhm.
bit of a misnomer because of the two scoring systems that have occurred.
Right.
You scored the
Definitely.
best in Austria under the best scoring system, whereas I think Turkey, listed here as last, actually had a 17. Well, I know for a fact because I gave them the 17 centers. But congratulations on the best Austria and the overall best score for a country in the tournament.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a really fun game. And that's my first best country this year, so that's a fun thing also. You had a nice result as Russia there. I saw on the DBNI or not the DBNI, the DBN broadcast. Looked like a pretty well played game there also.
I did. I had to get a little bit nasty with Morgante Pell, who the two of us, played with in the fourth game of the tournament, which is actually very difficult for me. But I think he goes, "You never stab, and why am I your first stab?" And I have stabbed before. You can ask Saren and a couple others. But I told him if I had to take a Friday off where I bill by the hour, I got to
Mhm.
try and do the best I can to get a good result. Um, so I felt a little bad for Morgante, but happy to see that I got best Russia, which is a country I find enigmatic to play. It's just a difficult country for me because I like to play the players as much as I play the board. I don't have standard openings, and there's so many options for Russia and so much precariousness. I was happy to see that result, but I tend to dread playing it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you got to play really fast as Russia. You got to talk, have your conversations really quickly. I think that's something I'm trying to work on as I play Russia as well.
I'm going to guess because I've played a number of games with you. I think, would I be right in saying the country you like playing least is Germany, not just because of this top
Yes.
board, but
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say that, but it's something I have to work on. You know, I've been trying to talk to people after games and talk through games a little bit. I may seek some advice specifically on that country out a little bit and hopefully improve on it. It's a little bit tricky, but I'll work that out off of your air, and hopefully next
well,
time we're talking because I did better.
one of my goals over the next few months is to talk to the people who play countries the best
Mhm.
and how they like to approach a country. So I don't know Doug Moore, but I'm going to reach out at least and see if he will be interviewed and give away any tips on um, how Germany should be played from his perspective, and Chris on Italy, and I would say Russ Dennis on England. But there are people out there who can who do so well as individual countries that I think could be beneficial to the hobby because you and I sort of kind of started at the same time. When you look at openings and strategy, what you get are these things from 20 or 30 years ago from the postal diplomacy openings, and there's not a lot of what I would call modern help on how to play countries with the way players play now.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I would certainly look forward to watching and listening to those if you were to do those.
Okay, so let's talk about the tournament. The first option I guess you had to make is there were four games you could play where you get a one drop. Uh, I only intended to play three, but I got eliminated in my third game. And so I wasn't really comfortable with my position. So I reluctantly went into the fourth one and happy to play with you. Did you know right away you were going to play all four?
I did not, and if I could go back in time, I would have not played that fourth round. But it was I went in thinking, I hope I play three. If I play three and I'm in the middle somewhere, I'll just play three. I guess the only circumstance on which I was going to end up playing four was if I thought I needed it to, to get the best result. And where I found myself on Saturday afternoon was sitting right near the top, but I thought about it a little bit, and I realized how I sitting right near the top, but I'd had a 3 center result in my Saturday morning game, and I thought about it a little, and I thought about the way the standings would likely impact the DBNI rankings and how important it was to finish as high as possible. And I thought, I'm going to leave it all out on the field and go and try to get that good result. But I was too tired. I'd gotten some sleep during the day for like 3 hours on Friday, but I couldn't get the election was going on and everything. I couldn't get the same sleep on Saturday. And I felt fried both that last game and the top board. So in retrospect, I wish I'd just gone to sleep, but you live and learn.
That was a rough week, especially with the election and the Asia Pacific time zone games. But I think it was good experience. You got a good result, but you have to get sleep. I mean, I think Chris Brand mentioned this to us in the interview. I said, how should I have prepared for the top board as opposed to, drinking scotch and not really doing much? And he was like, really, you should just go to the top board prepared to have a good time, but you need to have a good night's sleep. And it was difficult in this format to do that.
Yeah. I think it was a admirable effort by Dave to set it up this way to try to get people in the Pacific time zone to be able to participate. It was really ambitious, and I think probably the adjustment that it looks like Bill has made for the next tournament, where the games start a little later and they start a little later in the morning and start a little earlier at the night, will allow people to sleep a little bit more at night, and then to create the separate rounds. But to do that, you really need the tournament structure with all the different TVs like they've set it up. So I think Carnage went as well as it could have gone, and I'm excited to see how this next tournament will go. Hopefully, sleep a little bit more in the week leading up to it as well.
Hold on there. I don't know why. Trying to get this off my screen. There we go. All right. I'm learning this technology as we go along. So, you and I drew the first country, drew Turkey in the very first game, and I don't want to go over every set of moves, but I do want to talk about, I think, something that impacted the top board, which is you played with Farron, who made the top board in round one. You played with Farron, I know, in round four, and then the top board. Did you play with her in rounds 2 or 3?
I don't believe so. No, I think it was just those 3 games, which is still a lot for one weekend.
And your relationship with Farron, and how it ended up, and it was very clear from Farron's interview on DBN and her play, affected probably your performance on the top board. So I'm curious to see how you approach Turkey and whether or not you and Farron got off to a good start. It doesn't look like it with the Lepanto opening coming for Turkey.
Yeah, it didn't, overall, that relationship did not flourish in a way that benefited me in the top game. It certainly wasn't good in the top game. I'm not sure exactly that there's anything deeply wrong there, and I hope I can work with Farron well in future tournaments. So I don't have an idea of exactly whether anything, how anything impacted anything else, but I'll just speak to what happened on the board here and in the conversations here.
All right, so we see the Lepanto opening, and then you got Bill Hackenbrack as England, right?
Yeah, it was interesting talking to Bill a little bit too. We each stayed a little more focused on our own sides than I think I sometimes would have liked to, but They had a very good EF going, and basically I started out having a pretty solid conversation with Richard here in Russia, and I also
Who's
had
a
an okay
nice who's a nice guy for people
he
who
is.
don't know him. I've enjoyed playing with him.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think this was my first time playing with him, but we hit it off pretty well. And then I had a fine conversation with Miles, but I feel like once you see Russia and Galicia, I never say it right. Is the proper way Galicia?
Okay, so you can go to diplomacybriefing.com, not for a plug, but they actually got speakers from every province in on the diplomacy board for the proper pronunciation of each thing. I call it Galicia. It's not
Okay.
Galatia. I know that. So
All
I
right.
say Galicia, but
Galicia.
I don't know its actual proper
All right. Well, I'll go
pronunciation.
with
They got
that
a
for
Russian
now.
guy to say it's Sevastopol for Sevastopol is
That's
Sevastopol,
tricky.
but
That's going to be a tricky one
yeah.
to change because I've always said it's Sevastopol. Galicia, I realize I say differently sometimes from others. So anyway, which is no good. Anyway, once you see Russia there and you see Italy in Trieste, I feel like you might as well kind of
Write
continue
Austria off.
on Austria. Yeah, right, exactly. So at this point, I was talking to Farron in Italy, and I was saying, let's go, let's finish them off. And I was getting a lot of pushback as I don't know if it was at this point or if it was the next turn, but as I think you have an RT going, and I am really worried about that. And for me, it's more a matter of if I can work with two people, that's great. I haven't necessarily decided what's going to happen once we get through the beginning of the game. I'm just trying to get as many friends as I can get. But what happened here is that I was politely declined, and in terms of making it a three-way alliance, and
Bye,
so
Farron.
by Farron, right? And
I
then
find that she does one of the things I like about her diplomacy is and it probably speaks to her results a little bit is you know where you stand with her.
yes,
But you know, she's not afraid. She doesn't give you all her information as she shouldn't, but I think her directness is an asset because I never feel when I play with her that it's over in the long term. That we might be able to work together down the road, but for now we're at war.
yeah, and I try to be that way. I try to be that way also for the most part. So I thought we had. Well, that was one of the more remarkable things about this game is that we worked against each other the most time, but for most of the time. But I don't think either of us ever lied to the other one, which was interesting. What happened here was that Austria gets dislodged from Serbia, and I realized I wasn't going to get Farron on my side, so I went to Miles playing Austria, and I convinced him to go back against Trieste, supported him in from Serbia, and then we sort of had a 3-on-1 the other way. Um, this almost worked out for me because we made a lot of progress into Italy. It did not work out though because Farron gets that army convoy behind me, and
Yeah,
then that one army in Syria and Armenia goes back and forth, locks down my two fleets in Smyrna and Ankara, and then also Richard's fleet, and we get super slowed down. And I think that really is what takes away any chance of us keeping up with the EF.
and the
So that
EF's
army
making a
goes,
lot of progress here.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, you can just see it. They're just there, and then here's the move to Armenia now. So, just as Russia moves to Moscow,
it was a mistake to build a fleet. I probably should have built an army in Ankara instead. I just wanted to make a play through the Med, and I thought she'd pull that fleet. But I guess instead she made the argument to the EF to keep her alive. I mean, I thought she'd pull that army, but instead she made the argument uh,
turns out it didn't work. Looks like she got eliminated here. Otherwise, the
yeah,
play.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with making that play though. But yeah, I feel bad holding this much. I'm just sitting there. It was a frustrating end of the game. It was a good. I felt good in the beginning of the game, and in the end, I just felt a little bit stagnant.
All right, so the game ends in let's see.
Eventually, I got forward. Miles, it was the middle of the night, and he just was getting more and more tired, and by the end, he fell asleep. So I ended up taking his dots.
You're like he literally fell asleep during the game.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been like morning time. Like I think the game started at, I'm not sure about the time
It
zone, but I think,
started at 8 a.m. Central or 9 a.m. Central. I think I can't
yeah,
remember.
so it must have been like 2 in the morning there. And I think he'd had a drink or two also, as we all do. And just by the morning, it was anyway. He was an interesting player, and I'd really like to play with him again. But when we're both well rested.
But look, it's Carnage scoring game one, so France and England share, but you get the third place Carnage points, which is just fine for the first game of the tournament.
Yeah, it was solid. I was happy with it, and it was good working with Richard. Hopefully, I don't think I was on another board with him this tournament, but hopefully again in the future.
And then you get to Austria as uh, in game two with John Anderson playing England, Matthew Krill as France, Kurt Vaughn, who I played with as with Turkey, and you got Nikolai as Turkey down there. So that's a dangerous player as Turkey, and he's always looking for a friend. So, and I know you've already seen the results. You've got best Austria. So tell me what you were thinking in the beginning.
Well, I was just trying to make friends at first. I played with David once before, and I think that I'd done well. That was some time ago. This game started out pretty neutral. I think what happened right at first was Nicola made start pretty neutral in terms of I had good conversations with everyone, and it wasn't like I knew out of the gate who I was working with and against. Nicola made such a good opening move on Russia
He took a black.
that yeah, that I felt compelled to help Russia. It's one of those where like making the good move actually got me scared of him, and I
But let me ask you this: was this Nicola telling Russia, "Let's have an RT going, move to Romania"? I mean, we can ask him. Or when you talk to Russia, was he just like, "Dude, I got out. We made a deal and he broke it," or what? What
I don't
happened?
know. Kurt told me he was going to go to Romania with the fleet, but I thought he meant in the fall. I was surprised to see this happen right now, and I'm not sure what the negotiation was between them.
Well, this is devastating for Russia, and I'm curious to see what. Yeah, I mean, but you got Russia out of the pickle a bit, even though there's an army in Sevastopol by helping Romania get to Bulgaria. That was great.
Yeah, it was sort of a balancing play here. I mean, if I had helped Nikola into Romania, maybe we could have worked together really well, but it just would have put him ahead of me too early, I thought.
And this
Because
was your thinking.
mhm.
So how did
So
Nicola react when you did this? I'd like to know. I dealt with him on the top board. It's the first time we were sort of adverse to each other. How did he react to this? Was he upset with you, or did he brush it off and say, "I understand"? Or
I mean, he was certainly. I mean, Nikola is such a good player. I mean, he's certainly well um, practiced in each of his reactions to everything. He was, level-headed, but expressed disappointment without being angry about it. I think, and he kept proposing really good ideas as the game went. I mean, that's I think the right thing to do. He ends up getting eliminated here, and then I think he was irritated with me at that point. But later on, when we get to the top board, we talked again, and he said, you topped the board. Like if you topped the board, it was a good move. So I think that's very, that's just the way you want to react to that.
so he's been instrumental. I interviewed him about 2 months ago, and he was very clear. He gave me two bits of advice, which is you've got to go for it even if you don't win, going for it and going for it in the heat of the moment forces you to think better tactically, which he's totally right about. So you won't make the same mistake twice. But also, it's like you'll get more respect sometimes if you have to be nasty, and that's the part I've had a hard time with because I I come from a political background. I'm not a politician, but I've worked for enough congressmen that I like being liked. I don't like being
Mhm.
not liked. And it's been hard for me. And I think it may be hard for you to, I guess, understand you get more respect. People don't hate it if you make the moves that end up working out and benefiting your game. I think what they hate is a stab or a dumb stab that ultimately is destructive for you or both players involved.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it is. It is tricky. You want to build. So much of this game is about building relationships, but if you never stab anyone, you can never um, succeed at a high level. So you've got to remember that it's all within the game, and I do remember that. But it is a balancing act.
Now, what I really like about your game here is by helping Russia and hurting Nikolai, you're making good grounds. But what I really like is you've managed to keep Italy offside because I know Turkey would be throwing every deal possible to try and keep Turkey, I mean, to try and keep Italy to balance you a little bit. So, how did you do that?
I think we had a good understanding that we were going to run a Lepanto like this, and we were both going to benefit from it. Um,
Well, where's Italy benefiting?
Not yet, not yet, but they do. I think next year I give them Trieste because I've started to benefit more.
There
Yeah, I
you
do.
go.
And then I'm not sure. We were just having really good conversations. I don't remember the exact specifics of the content of them, but I appreciated. I mean, I guess I could have given him Trieste the first year, but I appreciated me getting started there, and then him coming up behind me makes me feel more secure that way. And I trust him here. You can see I move out of Greece. He could have come in behind me if he'd wanted to.
This
Um,
is one of my questions I have for you. It's what I've learned. At a very basic level of diplomacy, I prioritize the North Sea and the Black Sea and the Ionian Sea, depending where I'm at. But what I've learned is just how damn important the Aegean Sea is um, to Austria. I mean, I think the Aegean Sea is more important than Trieste, uh, and I would make this uh, trade. But you're right, you did leave yourself open. But what really could Italy do to you, even if you took Greece in the long term? You could
it's a
take it
good
back.
point. We actually, now that I think about it, we were talking here, and I needed to give him a dot. I had actually forgotten about this until I'm just looking at it again. And we talked about me giving him Greece, and then I went back and I was like, well, why don't I give you Trieste instead? If I give you Greece, we've got a unit sitting in Greece, and not as forward as we want to be. It just took me a second to think about it, and I think this was the better move.
Meanwhile, you got Turkey on the run, and it looked like John Anderson as England, just as I look at the board, had a good EF going that turned around on him
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Could you go back one?
with
Yeah,
the
right.
French moving into the Irish. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting what Michael's doing here, kind of reshuffling. I guess trying to get that fleet forward. Um, Him and John had some back and forth in this game. I think they end up working together here in the next part though.
well, John certainly had more success than you or I, but I think his early success has taken him now to the next level that neither one of us have yet faced, which is he's starting to get ganged up on a bit. I think you saw it in this tournament.
Yeah, that is probable. I have a ton of respect for John. I've played on a number of boards with him this year, and I've never seen somebody who can convince the entire board that he's not a threat as much when he is a threat. It's very impressive, and he's a great tactician also, and he does some really creative things. Which is sorry, something's going on my computer here. 1 second. He
No
does some really
problem. And
creative things, which is all which is also he's all the whole he's got all the skills you need to be great at this. But right, this is
he,
something you hear about, that people are start to gang up on people who are massively successful.
whoa, hold on here. Um,
I
let's
think
see here. You're gonna have to go back. All right, we're back. And sorry, listeners, I'm doing the best I can. The other thing I was going to say about John, just so you know, is one of his strengths um, is he's infuriatingly nice and so humble. We saw that in his Windy City Weasels interview, but uh, I had a game with him where uh, I had to I just kept peppering him when we were at odds uh, to to get arrogant because I had to try and convince the rest of the board that he was really trying to do something that they didn't seem to think he was trying to do. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, we're all going to go in a room together, and I'm essentially going to cross-examine you, which is what I did. And that was to my ultimately it didn't matter, but it was to my benefit. And it's difficult with John because he has such good relations with everybody, just like you said. All right, so back to the game here.
Yeah. So importantly, Russia had moved from Livonia to Warsaw and Moscow to Ukraine, while saying that they were moving. It was sort of vague, and I might not have heard them properly. They told me later that they told me that they were going to do that, but they said they were moving that way to go towards Germany, and I was not really seeing how that was that way. So that made me a little wary of them. So in this situation, what we'd arrange is that I would go to Galicia, and then I'd go from Galicia to Silesia. And I'd asked Russia to go from Warsaw to Prussia and Ukraine to Warsaw. But instead, we had this situation in Galicia that ended up, he tries to go there also. That created a little bit of distrust, I think, that ends up playing out a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, he and it looks like now you tried to get it on side a bit.
Right. Yeah, we did work it out, and we thought, with Germany moving across, we did want to work together here.
And I love this sort of Western move down. John convinced France to back off, and that's good for you in the sense that Italy's got to go deal with that. So you got to free back, and it looks like Russia's moving away from you. It, I've not seen the rest of the game, but this has to be a wonderful turn for you. You just have to be thrilled at what your position is right now. You take a
Yeah,
dot, and you're looking good.
right. It's good. I mean, we've got the three of us are working together against Turkey right now. Sort of like what I said the last game. Just when you've got someone down in that situation, you might as well finish them off. Turkey can lurk behind and come back out later. So we feel like we've got that pretty secure, and we're moving forward collectively here. I start going forward into Silesia, and I was working well, especially with David here.
And what I like here is you have no threat to your southeast whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
You've gained some allies. They're moving away from you. I love playing Austria, and I think I'm pretty good at it. And I like what you've done here. You're really setting yourself up for good victory conditions.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think this is where I make the move here. Yeah.
Here's a stab. Okay, so you help. Let's go look. You help Italy into Smyrna, so you keep them on side, and you go for the 2-dot fall stab, taking Warsaw and Romania. Did you work this out with Germany, or was this a bit of a surprise to everybody on the board? Did you keep it quiet?
Well, like I was saying, I was, John's involved in everything. He'd been encouraging me to do this for a while, although I made sure I did it on my own terms. It turns out he wanted to know when I was going to do it, I think because he made that choice to take Denmark at the same time. I ended up doing this, because I saw a chance. It's funny, even now I feel a little bit bad about it. But it
Right.
really like set me up. Kirk was a little bit, he was joking with me, ribbed me a little bit about it afterwards. I guess he asked Dave before this whether, he said, I'm a little out of position. You think he's going to stab me? And Dave said, oh, Ben doesn't normally do that. which it makes me feel even worse about it. But it worked out for me really well. I not only got the 2 dots, but I got some position on some more dots. I really was pretty much guaranteed Sebastopol. Excuse me, you got me confused with your pronunciation thing.
I know.
I still felt like I had Dave on side really well, and we could just push out collectively in opposite directions from here. Michael was also pretty upset with John for taking Denmark, so that worked out to my advantage also.
So, the other thing is that this affected my game, your stab, because Turk was Turkey in the next game and I was Italy. We had an absolutely devastating IT going that was so good. I actually thought it could, we could share an incredibly high board top if we wanted to under Carnage scoring. But Kirk stabbed me uh, due to a mistake of my on my own, my trusting nature, uh, which he was right to take advantage of. And he, I said, dude, I go, I don't understand because I don't think you can solo. All you've done is essentially take away points from me. I would have given you first place if you wanted it. If I had ended up being second in the game, I would have been okay with it under Carnage rules. And he was like, I got to go for the solo. You don't understand. Ben Kellman broke my heart last night. He
I'm sorry,
broke it.
Kurt.
He broke it in pieces, and I've got to grab as high a score as I can.
Yeah.
Um, and it turns out, such to the point where after it was kind of over, I even eliminated myself. I ejected from the game just to give him one extra point. Um, because I ended up getting mad at the people I was then cooperating with, including Adam, who played on our top board. But this is I'm curious to see what you do next, if you could just continue against Russia or if you make the move against Italy. Let's see what
I think I
you
had a lot of dots ahead of me here with
got. A
Russia.
lot of dots. Yeah, you're just going to race. You're going to take Sevastopol, which you do. Oh, and I guess you can. This is a stunning uh, display. You got Italy to move back to Smyrna, I guess, to say, I'm tired of Greece being under threat. But you remain in the Ionian. Was that
Well, there was a reason for that. We were worried about France, and
France?
we wanted that support for Tunis um, in case, just in case he pushed forward. I'm trying to think now whether it was absolutely necessary or not, but it was. I don't know. That was the reasoning at the time. That was agreed on, and then we agreed to get him and Kara, and we worked that out over the rest of the game. It's a little bit tricky because,
He's got a fleet in Smyrna.
right, exactly.
Well, but like this is the part I really want to talk to you about, which is it seems like in these games so much is talked about in Alliance about evening up units as opposed to position. You're now 2 up with 4 moves to go, and I'm sure Italy. You're talking about Ankara, but I'm sure Italy is. Is he pressing you? Is Dave pressing you at all for that to even up units? And what are you saying if he is pressing?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to remember. He certainly wanted Ankara. I don't remember an extended conversation about getting back to even yet. We kind of had that conversation right as we realized we are getting towards the end of the game. Um,
Well, you're
for me,
clearly topping the board here.
right.
So I'm wondering if your point to Italy is, let's get you to 7 so you're second.
Yeah, I think that would have been the point. I can't remember if we had the conversation. We might have had that. I mean, once I was ahead at this point, it was kind of, I would like to top this board. It's no longer we need to be completely even. I can't remember exactly where we had that conversation. In terms of you were talking about whether to go after Italy too. I mean, my general play, as long as I'm in an alliance and I like playing in an alliance, is that as long as there are dots ahead of us, as long as there's room for growth, there's no reason to stab that ally. It's really valuable to have a person at your back that you can trust.
I agree with that, and particularly in a game that will force conclude at the end of '07.
Mhm.
All you're going to do is just draw more problems than a dot or two.
Yeah, I think Italy's got a lot of his units locked up in going after Marseille and playing against France. There weren't a lot that could have been used to even up, even if I wanted to. I guess I could have moved out of Constantinople. But all right, we did talk about that. But my argument was I can get you Ankara. Why do you need to take one of my dots? Take the Russian dot.
Why not? I like the idea of the convoy to Smyrna, so so you can switch. But why not you just move to Ankara and he takes Constantinople?
Yeah, we could have done that. I mean, that would have brought him a little bit closer
To
to my other dot.
Bulgaria.
My original idea was to move myself out of the way. I guess move Khan back to Bulgaria, Aegean to Khan, Aegean to Black Sea, and then support him into Ankara in the last, because we had just enough turns to do that, and that was guaranteed.
There's clearly some miscommunication here, as Armenia thinks Moscow is going to be moving to
They must have thought I
Sevastopol.
was going to self-bounce it. I don't know why they would have thought that. I mean, it's not like I needed Ukraine to do anything else, but it was probably just, they were probably just hoping for that.
Okay, so at this point, you weren't coordinating that much in
I wasn't
on
telling
moves.
Russia I was going to work with them. I mean,
Right. Oh, it was Russia's move. I'm sorry. I lost the I
me and
lost
Dave
the
were working together, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then at this point, it pushed forward. I don't think I'm not going to get St. Petersburg. Um, yeah, and we got to the last turn here, and I sort of split the difference. I've been with Dave the whole game. I wanted to stick with him. At the same time, given the scoring system, a few more dots could have been good. I think.
You take Munich.
Yeah, I mean, I could have. Or is this is turn right? So I just took Munich in the spring. I mean, I've got in front of me here Trieste, Constantinople, or Trieste, Naples, Constantinople if I want to try to make a play for it. Berlin probably, but I
Maybe Naples if Italy doesn't
right.
defend it. I mean,
But
you got some
Michael had
opportunities.
turned his back on me and Dawn after John, and I didn't want to finish him. Didn't want to eliminate him. So I basically told Dave I was going to take Trieste. It's one of my home centers. I'm going to take one back, but I'm not going to take Naples or Cannes or Berlin or anything. And I don't know. In retrospect, I did finish just behind the next highest player going into the top board. So it might have made a difference. But, I'd like to play these alliances. And I think ending games in a way that's agreeable to everybody is sort of a price to be a good alliance player.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, I did not do that in our game four, which we'll see, but for reasons that were different, because my alliance sort of broke down. But yeah, no, it's a tough call because I think you and I aren't used enough to the seeding issues and how high Bangkok scoring was. I think it could have affected your position to take those two more dots. So as it was, you got the best score of the tournament with any game that there is. So congratulations to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I was very happy with the result. It was almost 3 a.m. when we finished this game, and I had a lot of adrenaline going. I didn't get to sleep for another hour and 20 minutes, probably, which is one of the reasons I was so tired the next day.
So let's just touch game three quickly.
Yeah,
You're
let's see. This was
playing England. You got Jonathan Frank as Italy, who I recognize. Liam is Turkey, dangerous, but on the other corner. JJ Ray, I call him he's a tricky guy. And so it looks like ooh, it starts out badly. But why don't you sort of
I,
walk us through?
I like playing England. I think JJ and Jackson's also a very good player. Playing Russia here, I think they were working
Who's the
together.
son of Dave, who you just allied with
I
the night
know, yeah,
before?
I know. It didn't work as well with Jackson, but it was interesting. He came against me, and I wanted to try to talk to him and talk him out of it. And it was an interesting type of alliance move. He didn't really want to talk to me very much until the end of the game. And then at the end of the game, we were talking, and I said, Jackson, why don't we talk? We could have worked it out. And he said, I didn't want to make my allies think I might work with you by having lots of conversations with you. I wanted to like make it really. And I thought that was really interesting. I've never really thought about managing my time to assure people of things in that way. So I thought that was
Well,
a
yeah, but that's hard.
well, it worked out for him. Well, I think it worked out for him. It certainly worked out for him in the north. I'm trying to remember. This game, I was not able to find as strong as an ally as I would have liked, and I got sort of pushed back. There's an interesting turn in. I didn't write it down. Basically, I do start to get going with Germany. I'm blanking on who is Germany in this game.
It just says POD. I don't know who that is.
It was a good apologies to whoever that was, because we had some good conversations. And we start getting forward here, but we realize we're not going to make a lot more gains. And I help him into the English channel here. And then I don't have a lot of way to move forward. So I suggested that I take Belgium. Well, that was you go back one. That was the key one. I suggested that if he gives me Belgium, I can build a fleet in Liverpool, and then we can use that to crack the Mid-Atlantic. And very rightfully, I think he says, why do that? I mean, it would have worked, I think, but I had London open, and he just takes it himself,
I think
So I
he'd
think it
rather
was
say, yeah, this is hard, right? When you think you're moving to Belgium and he's convoying himself into London. I made a similar play against Zachary Moore in Media Wars, and when he was England and I was France. And I don't know if Zachary Moore has talked to me since then.
I mean, it was a big risk that I was taking, but I knew it was a big risk. And if I wanted to get a big result, I thought I had to do it. In retrospect, I probably should have stayed in London in the spring so that if I was going to get convoyed out, he couldn't get straight into London. But, you live and learn. That's sort of the story of this game for me. They make progress on me. France and England, I was proud of myself for talking them out of finishing me off. And then towards the end, it actually doesn't work out that well for Russia in the end. I don't remember what happened in the South, but eventually I took a dot off of Jackson at the end of the game to get back to 3.
All right. And so you survived is I guess the main thing. It's Carnage scoring. So you finished, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But you still got points.
Yeah, and by holding
Not
out
7th, 5th. You finished 5th.
By holding out until after Russia was out, I got the 5th instead of the 6th place. It was actually interesting. It was a coordinated move between, even though Germany and Austria were working against each other, they came to me suggesting a way to take those 3 dots from Russia and finish them off.
Now, board 4 is a game I played in as Austria, and you played Germany. Farron was France, and Morgante Pell was England. Dave Roberts, who you had good relations with already as Russia, so that had to be good for you. And then I didn't really know Italy or Turkey well at the time, although I grew to like Italy. I think he probably hates me now, but I'm more curious on your moves. I can tell our listeners the story of the East. If you're looking at the map throughout the game, is it's a gang up on Turkey and then a gang up on Russia. So we resolved the East fairly efficiently.
Yeah, well, I've been talking a lot. I'd be interested in hearing more from you as we go here as well.
Sure.
Was that arranged right off the bat to get some pace going forward?
Arranged right off the bat.
Yeah.
I told him. I'm not. Early diplomacy, Ed was super concerned about Trieste. More that I played Austria, the more I realize you gain a lot of trust with Trieste, you get a lot of momentum, and ultimately, if Italy tries to do something against you, you turn around on Italy, and then you both die. So I've not been afraid to give Trieste. I offered it, and he took it. The big concern here was both Dave and Italy were worried, rightly so, that I was going to pick one over the other. And I eventually took Italy when I saw Russia was going to jump ahead big time, and I didn't know if I could stop it.
Mhm.
And so that's what happened. But
It is
here,
interesting. That's
uh,
sort of the same thing I said about Russia earlier on, even though that was in an earlier turn. It's a scary. It's easy for Russia to be intimidating, and then it's easy. They're so spread out that sometimes it's easy to make a play into them to stop them, even if they are starting to get intimidating. So I think that's a trick of Russia.
right, yeah. And so it looks like you have a bit of a EF going
Hmm.
against you.
Yeah, it was tricky here. Well, no, I was F here.
Oh, you were F. That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
I got my games mixed up. So you and Morgante are working a bit against Farron.
yeah. Well, he came into English Channel, which obviously wasn't planned, but tried to turn it around here by getting a convoy to Belgium, and that started out pretty well.
I remember seeing this move, and I was wondering if there was a discussion on, and maybe you didn't see the article in Diplomacy Briefing of the quote unquote Waterloo opening, where you convoy uh, into Belgium, but north bounces Holland to really slow down tempo.
It's not a bad idea. Actually, that would have been a good idea from this position because Germany isn't on Belgium at all. That actually would have been a better move. That was our problem here, I think. Me and Morgante got together, but we did not. I'm sorry, someone's yelling out the window. Give me 1 second. One one downside of city life here. Some Eagles fans out there. I don't know how that game's going. It's probably halftime though. It's probably why they're
Well, they
outside.
haven't broken windows yet, so they're probably okay.
um, the let's see, what was I saying? Me and
Just
Morgante
saying,
got
you and
together. We
Morgante
should
just
have
didn't
pushed
seem like you
faster.
could you could
We just
click.
didn't have enough pace, and I think that's what doomed us here in the game as a whole. Yeah, blocking Holland would have been a good idea. I should have thought of that.
The builds come through. Uh, as you can see, I have sort of Turkey on the run. Bit of an inexperienced Turkey, by the way. The critical problem Turkey made here. Turkey would have gone down no matter what, but he needed to bounce me in Serbia. When you played Turkey and you saw the Lepanto coming, the right move for Turkey is for Bulgaria to move to Serbia. I convinced him that this was all Italy going crazy and to work with me, and so I got. He just had not, I think, had enough experience to see what was happening, uh, and I took that gamble uh, kind of thinking it would pay off, just knowing that Turkey was a bit inexperienced. I felt bad about it, but not too badly.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Yeah, you got to make sure you defend against that. It's an interesting
But I
question.
think this is a key move here, right? Because have you guys sold to Farron some Western triple issue,
Yeah,
and then you just decide to
if
take
there was
advantage of her?
if there was something that Farron was mad about, this is probably what she was mad about. I was working with Morgante. I wanted to work against Germany here. No offense to Farron. I just had an ally and I wanted to work across the middle of the board. But I don't know if it started with her or Morgante, but they came back and they made a pitch about a triple, and I kind of said, "Oh, I don't really. It's not really what I want to do, and it's not really my favorite." But they said, let's do it," and I could see why you'd be selling it. You're trying, and eventually I said, "Okay, let's do it," but I really didn't want to do it, And then I looked at the board and I thought, uh, I didn't do it. I don't know. Maybe I should have in retrospect. I mean, the East is still fighting. Maybe we would have had a good. Oh no, but part of the problem is I built an army in Marseille. If I built a fleet in Marseille, that's what I said. I said I wish you'd have told me before the last fall that you wanted to do this. That was part of it because I didn't have the fleet to go against Italy. But yeah, this was the only lie I told, and it didn't work out. I think we probably should have taken Holland, and that would have helped if we wanted to do it. But instead, what happens here?
You get Morgante back on side. He clearly knows you're not doing the
Right.
Western
I think he
triple.
knew. I think I told him before the last turn too. Anyway, I was I was tired, and this game just turned into a slog. None of the three of us made any progress, and
Well, this was a beneficial to me, right? Because at
yeah,
this point, I see that Russia is going to take Norway. I promised Russia Ankara, uh, and that all that little fighting that you guys did there sort of opened up this massive opportunity uh, that's coming for me in the fall, uh, which is
right.
right here.
It was really a mistake not to build a southern fleet. Now we need Morgante's help in the Med, so he's got his fleet moving around. It was a mistake there.
And the thing for me, at least on my side of the board, is uh, Dave came back to us and basically just said, hey, I wish you would have told me that you were worried that I was growing. I wouldn't have taken Ankara, to work with you. What are you guys doing to me? And he's basically like, those guys in the West can't get it together. That's literally what he said. He goes, if you just somehow work with me, I'll help you and I'll be third and I'll be okay with that. So, I mean, you guys couldn't even work it together when you had me brutally stab
Yeah, I don't
Russia.
know. The only real excuse I can make is how tired we all were. I did not play my best game this game.
So the other thing is that I think we had a draw vote here at the end of '04, which gets vetoed by
It would have been nice because it was only like
Morgante.
12:30, and we ended up going past 2.
Yeah, we had lots of draw votes. Here was the first one, but Morgante got a little sneaky by taking Denmark and Portugal. I
Yeah,
was
what
willing
about
to draw at this
yeah?
point because we were even on centers, but Mor- Morgante, Farron vetoed it because she was mad and you did not.
Well, I thought he might do this, so I blocked Brest. I just wanted to go to sleep at this point, honestly. So I was thinking that I was probably going to make the top board, and I wanted to go to sleep. That was my main priority.
Yeah, well, that's why I agreed to draw, which is like at this point I knew I had enough to win, and I was fine with it. Farron was thinking a little more strategically, and I think out of anger of what Morgante did, we tell Morgante, we get everybody sort of on side at the end of '06, where we have another draw vote. Now you've pegged uh, Morgante back at the end of
Dude,
winter of
you did
'06.
a good job getting everyone on board here. I mean, Italy could have taken another dot from me, and they chose not to.
He
Um,
could have, yeah. But this is when Italy's the one who uh, uh, vetoed this draw, and that really angered me because I had told him the whole time I'd take a shared board top, but I didn't want to be behind. And he gets on the line with me. He goes, "Well, I can take Marseille, and I could get to 9-8." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." And you got to, and I remember, if you remember, I made him come into your room and admit what he did.
yeah, I was surprised that happened.
I
but
publicly shamed him and then told him everything is going to be fine between us and we're going to end 8-8.
But
You're happy.
you have
They're happy.
gotten couldn't you have gotten Moscow here?
I could have gotten Moscow if I
You
wanted
could have got the
to.
9-9, but I guess that just creates imbalance, you think? It's just risky. Someone could try to swap for
Yeah, I
something.
didn't want to do that. That's what I told him I would do.
Mhm.
Um, that and that's why he held all these units and we agreed to this bounce. But meanwhile, I'm like, nah, I'm not taking my chances with the way he played that in '06. And then he comes in a ring with me here and he's like, are you gonna take my dots? And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna take your dots. I I mean I vetoed the last draw because of what happened, and he really was upset. And it's just like, look, man, uh, in my mind, you created this because I wanted to go to bed, but here I wasn't sure if he was going to try and make a move. I don't think he could have done anything. That's why I made that's why I did what I did.
Mhm.
Uh, but I knew by this time it was. But I was a little surprised. I had just told him that I was taking his dots, and I guess he had second locked up. But I'm surprised he didn't take a dot off of you. He could have taken Marseille.
I don't know that he could now because now I've got the unit that
Oh,
wasn't first.
Gascony. He
Is
got
Gaston.
Gascony support.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. He couldn't have
he
taken
could have
Marseille.
in the spring, but now it's too
Yeah.
late.
So that was that game, and
Yeah, that worked out pretty well for you. That jumped you. I think you were on the top board anyway, right? But that jumped you up to the very top.
if I had not played the fourth game, I worked out that I would have finished eighth or ninth. So I'm
Oh
glad I
wow.
played the top board. I mean the round four, and yeah, it launched me into the first position in Carnage. We won't talk about the top board too much because it's been analyzed to death.
Yeah,
But the
I
story of
didn't.
it,
I didn't do that.
yeah,
I didn't survive that long.
yeah.
Bill and Farron had a very good alliance, and they were probably right the way they were
Just tell
working.
me. Well, Bill won, so I mean, you can't be second guessed.
Yeah.
But was it obvious from the very beginning that Farron was going to just not work with you, or did she? I
No,
mean,
she's a better player than that. I mean, I don't think she wouldn't have. I
she
don't
missed
think
the
she would
roller
have.
in fall of '01, so
Yeah.
I'd be
No, I
curious
mean,
to know.
yeah. I mean, the spring turn. This plays out very similarly to the way the game the night before played out, which she did remind me a few times. It, but yeah, the first turn I tried to we agreed to balance in Burgundy, and I probably shouldn't have done that. I just have more options from Ruhr. I probably should have just gone to Ruhr regardless. But I thought, you do a balance, you build some trust, you can work from there.
Well, I
Once
think it's a good move on her part. By forcing it, it takes you away from being a player in Belgium, and it
right,
allows the EF to roll.
forcing it is a good move, and telling me we're going to bounce so that I don't move to Ruhr is also a good move.
Agreed.
So yeah, she played this excellently, and yeah, I never felt Bill was interesting. I mean, I was selling him on things, and he was just very. He wasn't saying yes and not doing them. He was just sort of acknowledging that they were good ideas and not committing to anything. And he never had to lie. It was very well played, and it was frustrating, but it is what it is, and I was pretty tired, and I don't know. I don't mean to make excuses. It wasn't my best game. I think it also hurt a little bit to have Chris go down so fast. This is a really creative move by you guys in the South. I know.
Well, Adam suggested the Albanian to Ionian, because I was talking to Adam and I was just like, hey, there's a way for Italy to get no builds here and Russia to get no builds if you bounce them in Romania. Um, and Adam said, well, why don't you move to the Ionian? And I saw immediately that we could take Chris out as being a threat without being any worry to me. I might have changed back if you watched the Chris Brand interview. I mean, I wanted to change back actually to work with Chris. I ran out of time. But if you remember our conversation, because I knew what was happening on my end of the board, and I knew things were looking very bleak for you, and you needed an ally in Russia. So I think you made the right move in not bouncing Sweden. But I knew Turkey was getting two, and I and so I knew Russia was building uh, after Romania, and I didn't want them to build two. I thought this would slow me down, which is why if Chris Brand is listening, I would have done those moves if I had time, because I didn't want Russia building two. But I begged you. I mean, I leaned on you as hard as I think you can in diplomacy, and you're just like, dude, I can't do it. I mean, look at what's happening to me.
Yeah, to bounce Nicola out of Sweden.
Right.
Yeah, I really hoped that Nicola would come against Bill at that point, and that we would have sort of a 2-on-2 situation instead of a 2-on-1 situation. So yeah, I wasn't about to make an enemy of him in that moment.
And and did
But yeah, you did make
Nicola
a
make
strong
any
pitch there.
promises? He just
What?
promised to build. Did Nicola make any promises other than he'd build north?
No, no. He said he would build an army in St. Petersburg, and he did. I hoped he would take Norway right away, but he, you know, I, he said plenty about his strategy. I think it was a solid strategy. It just, wasn't a benefit to me. But that's that's not his job to make sure I stay in the game.
So the rest of this game is basically a slow but steady death for you as
Yeah,
the EF
you make some
works.
good progress here. I mean, yeah, you guys have. I'm sure you've already talked about this with Chris. But yeah, anyway, it was an interesting game. I felt like you two were making good progress. There just wasn't the opportunity for the stab the same way there was in the West.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say this, which is I told Chris this, which is I rationalized this game immediately by saying, I did better than I expected and probably the best I could do given how open Farron made herself to England. But uh, your first rationalization is always sort of pro you
Mm-hmm.
because you have to just manage your depression a little bit. And as I think about the game a little bit, I think that the me and Turkey resolving the East as fast as we resolved most of it caused Farron to have to force herself to face that threat, which opened her up to Bill. So I've come around full circle thinking maybe this outright aggression was not the right play, and Nicola's balance of power argument for this game and this board may have been the way to go.
It's an interesting
So
thought. Yeah, he certainly was trying to keep things more balanced, and you, yeah, you took care of it quickly. I don't know. It was interesting. He said something at one point, Nicola did, about how we're not playing it right for like a 1907 end game, and I
he
don't
told
know.
everybody because they play this format in Europe all the time, and
Right,
that was yeah. He announced to the board, this is all wrong. You
right.
know, there's an AT and an EF, and this is not the way to play. It's essentially hang in there, get your dots in position. In '06, start grabbing what you can grab.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking about being newer, needing to play each country a few times, each power a few times. And then, it's also needing to play 1907 games and 1910 games and unlimited games and, stop some solo threats and go for some solos. And I'm just, to loop all the way around, I'm just enjoying getting to play a lot of games. Getting to play 5 games in a weekend was exhausting, but it was a fun time. And, just looking forward to playing more as we go. Um, this weekend was nice. I play any diplomacy. Tried to make up last weekend up to my girlfriend, by, hanging out with her a little bit. But excited to have VDL next week. You're doing those games?
50-50.
All
I'm a
right.
little tired. I'm doing these interviews,
Yeah.
but it's interesting. I stopped playing diplomacy in the '90s when I mean, look at me. When I was lucky enough to get a girlfriend, who later became my wife, and then we started raising a family. And
Sounds like you made a good move then.
as the kids got a little older, my wife basically forced me back into it by telling me, you need to do something else other than work. You need to find some enjoyment in your life.
Mhm.
And I've got a little outlet here through diplomacy because my current life is one faced with a lot of stresses. Most of us have. So I'm glad you at least have a girlfriend that seems to understand that you've got this mild obsession right now with diplomacy. But Ben, any other last words you want to say, or like how are you approaching the end of the season? Is it to make the DVNI? Like what are you? What
Yeah, I
can we
don't know. I
expect
mean,
from you?
I'll try. I mean, you know what Herm Edwards says, right? You play to win the game. So you always play to win. You always try to go in, and it's a little bit of it's a huge cliche, but it's funny to me. But yeah, I'm going to play some more as the season goes, and hopefully I make a play for the top of things. But if I don't, I feel like I've done pretty well, and hopefully I just continue to improve. Um, I do really like to talk about the game. I really like talking. It's a little bit unique talking on air like this, but I always like talking about the game with anyone. So I know anyone's listening to this and they want to spend an hour, half an hour talking about diplomacy. hit me up on Discord, and I just want to chat about strategy or whatever.
Well, actually, that's how after a game that we played, and I think solidified uh, our relationship. Although in any of the games we would maximize our own advantages. You can see we've been against each other. You just impressed me so much because you reached out to me, you wanted to talk about the game, and what you told me is, uh, and this is good news, bad news. You're like, and we're just chatting about life and getting to know each other. And I remember you saying, I come from an athletic background. I played football. I played rugby. I'm used to getting coached. I want to be coached up. And I'm thinking to myself, coached up for me? Like, Ben, you're not going to make any progress. Okay.
It's
Like, this
not
is
just
not going to
so
help.
yeah. So I probably framed that a little oddly. I used to have coaches all through my life, right? That's what you have in sports. But you don't need an opinion from someone who is an expert like a coach. Just talking about it allows me to think of new things because you just need a different perspective. You need more than one thought process, or at least I do, in order to kind of shake loose some new ways of thinking. Um, Otherwise, I'm just looking at the board that I just played and going, well, that didn't work, but why didn't it work? I mean, I can guess, but what does somebody else think that's why that didn't work? And I feel like people build discourse, you can build on each other.
I think the best way to get better tactically, which I think, to be fair, both of us probably need work on, is to play as many games as you can and to see various situations arise. I mean, I only got really good at poker when I played thousands of hands, and I feel the same way. Of course, I stopped when online gambling became illegal, and so but diplomacy to me is very similar. You have to play and experience. Why I started this uh, YouTube cast or whatever you call it with Humble, just simply because he would go through my games with me and he wanted to be sort of recorded, telling me where I made all my mistakes. And I think a lot of people would have a hard time with that. But for someone like me, that's like really useful. I'm
Yeah,
not saying I
exactly.
agree with him 100%, but I got a different perspective that now gives me more options in the games that I continue to play. That's why I do this.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I mean that's one thing, and then the other thing is to play more gunboat games, which I keep intending to do more of. I've probably only played like 3 or 4 so far, but just to get better at the tactics. Although it's really interesting, we were chatting. I don't remember what we were all chatting about on the Discord server the other day, but Chris Brand mentioned that in high school he used to play at lunch, and they would play 5-minute turns, and they only had an hour. And I thought that was really an interesting way to do it. Like, because, in Gumbo, the game is fundamentally different because, even if you have an ally and you have two on something or three on something and someone else has two, you can't coordinate, who's the mover. So it can change the game just because you couldn't coordinate. But even if you can just talk for 1 second and say, okay, I'm moving this way, you support that way. All right, sure, we'll do it. You know, I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know if there's I might try to set something up like that. I feel like it'd be great practice.
Well, I'd recommend to you, you don't need to set it up. And for all our listeners, you should join the Nexus Discord server, which will be at the bottom of every YouTube introduction. You can get on the Nexus Discord server. They have started a speedboat league, which are essentially 5-minute gunboat turns. Games are over in an hour and a half. The first finals for Nexus of Speedboat will
Oh yeah, yeah.
be on Saturday, which I somehow snuck into.
Sorry,
But you
I did
should
not
you should
articulate that well. I was saying speedboat for sure, and that's what I was saying. I played a couple games and it's really good. But I was talking about basically speedboat, but with open press.
Oh,
So you
well,
have a
that would be that'd be interesting because you can, especially in America's short attention span theater, right? Like move here. That's
right.
all I can say.
Right.
Like just do this.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious. Well,
I was
Ben,
basically thinking about that as practice, not as its own competitive format. But anyway, yeah.
I think if we've accomplished anything, it's so DB and I can at least if they're watching, Brian or Brandon say, don't know much about Ben Kellman. we know something about Ben Kellman now, and I think other players should know about Ben. That's why I said in my interview, you were my favorite player to play with. It seems like we get on boards all the time. And I think you've been a credit to the game and to this virtual hobby that we have right now. So thanks for coming on and talking about
Yeah,
your
thanks,
tournament.
Ed. It's been great playing with you as well, and also doing this interview. Kept me from spending my whole day watching football, which is a good thing.
I hear you, and apologies to listeners. I'm still learning to look at the camera. I keep looking at the map, but it's hard to do both at once. And if you can do a better job, please do. All right. Thanks to diplomacybriefing.com. Have a good day, Ben.
Yeah, you too.